What's going on, y'all? We got episode 20, the Let's Be Real podcast. Sorry we didn't get one out to you during the week. I was actually traveling for work, but we got the episode coming here Saturday, and so we're gonna get into it, man. Look, as always, we got my wine of the day. It's I don't know why I keep trying to show y'all, but it's a Baronne de Vignonet. It's a Bourdeaux. It's actually the third one that I'm showing y'all out of that Costco box. I know episode 20, I kind of wanted to do a better wine, but just with kind of how everything been going with working, and then I'm actually going to be gone again. So wanted to just get something a little light. But look, I got the glass, so we're going to do the podcast as always. This one a little bit more balanced, just kind of across the whole like spectrum. So not too dry. It is more kind of more low heavy, so it's going to be a little bit fruitier. I'd probably give it, I like Merlots, but y'all know me, I like Cabs. I'd probably give it maybe 6.8 out of 10 as far as how I would rate it. But I mean, for the price with that Costco box, you're getting the 4 bottles for 30. So can't complain about 750 a bottle. And so, um, yeah, let's get into it, man. We're going to start off today just because, like I said, we got a lot to go over because I was gone this week. So we're going to try to recap last week, get the look ahead that we got this week, and get some headlines. And we're going to try to do all that in our normal about 45 minutes to an hour time frame. So a lot that's not going to make it today. Really wanted to focus on just the bigger things. A couple of the things that aren't going to make it. First one, the Devondre Campbell refusing to go in for the Niners. To me, it's just inexcusable. Don't need to spend very much time on that. He's not going to play for him again. You obviously cannot do that as a player, and just the whole situation. He kind of just showed where he was at with that. I'd be surprised if he gets another job. Uh, Next one we're not going to do is Bronny's 30-point G League game. Mainly because, congrats to him. Like, that's awesome. I like Bronny as a prospect, but we don't spend too much time on G League games on the podcast, and we don't have the built-in trying to tear down LeBron, so we don't have to spend too much time on Bronny because we're not pushing the narrative of trying to tear down LeBron, which I feel like every podcast if you spend time on Bronny, I'm gonna guess where you fall on that. And then last one, speaking of, we're not going to talk about LeBron's personal reasons why he's been missing these few games, mainly just because I would love to talk about it, but not enough information out. Like, nobody really knows what's going on. A lot of speculation, but until there's reporting around it and, I know anything outside of just he's got a foot injury, we're going to hold off on it. Now, when stuff start coming out, then we'll talk about it then. But yeah, man, like I said, big episode, a lot of good stuff, very football heavy with some basketball at the end. We in the NBA season, so I'm going to try to touch on as much as I can. But we're right in the middle of a big-time football game. So we're going to start off, man, just recapping last week. And we're going to start off with the Chiefs and Chargers, man. So obviously, Chiefs win another one at the buzzer. Doinked field goal from their fourth field goal kicker in the last 4 weeks, it seems like. But yeah, so, obviously with that win, Chiefs, they lock in the division. So they're good there. And with the Buffalo loss that we're going to talk about here in a minute, but with that Buffalo loss now, 2 games clear in the conference. And again, which to me is huge. I've been talking about it for a good amount of time now and we even saw Patrick come out and talk about it, but that kind of cushion they get in the conference allows them to, maybe be able to rest some guys in this stretch they have coming up of that 3 games in 10 or 11 days. And so again, what I said that I think they should do is rest on that Christmas Day game, kind of the middle game of that 3-game stretch in 11 days against the Steelers. I think like I said, Patrick came out with it talking about, it's this late in the year, having to do that. It's not great. And, especially in a sport where, we see that a lack of rest does lead to increased injuries, and having, the Chiefs, who are a prime time team, doing that with trying to go for a three-peat, not something you want to see. And so while I get the NFL is, you're trying to break into this Christmas Day market that the NBA has had basically hostage from a sports standpoint for, you know, as long as I can remember. You're trying to break into that. You're doing it on a new platform in Netflix. I just think that obviously the NFL would hate to see it, but I think the Chiefs, that's got to be the game. And I get why the NFL is putting the Chiefs there, because it is a way to just draw eyes. But if I'm the Chiefs, yeah, that's the game I'm resting. And Chris Jones talked about it before. Now Patrick Mahomes talks about it, and I think it's a if I'm them, if I'm in that locker room, to me, it's a big kind of middle finger to the NFL for doing that to us as we're, trying to do this. And again, it's just, you're going to have to find a game. You're going to have to find a game where you can rest those guys. Now, obviously, that is all predicated on you guys handling business up to that game, so you can keep that buffer. But I'd rather sit them in that game. I'd play the last week of the year where you would normally rest guys. I'd probably play them there. Then you got the bye week, and then you're into the playoffs. So to me, that's what makes the most sense. But the big concerns with the Chiefs right now, obviously they get the win, kind of just keep finding ways to win at the end of the year. But that offensive line, man, that left side of the offensive line, and, they bring in DJ Humphries. And, I said, if that could even be an average, if he can give them average play from that position, it's a huge upgrade. And we see he goes down with injury. Yeah, I grant he wasn't playing well. It's hard to expect an O lineman to come in after 1 week of practice or 2 weeks of practice and really mesh in and play well. But I think he's a guy who could give them good play. And, you hate to see it, but he goes down with an injury. Hopefully they can get him back sooner than later, because, yeah, the amount of hits and sacks Mahomes has taken is just, if you're a Kansas City Chief, it's gotta concern you, because even outside of just looking at the, possibility, obviously the more hits you take, the more likely you are to sustain something, injury, whether it, hope, obviously we all would cross our fingers, hope it's not bad, but just anything, it beats you up. And also we've seen Mahomes where it's like, when he doesn't trust that, and he hasn't been able to, and it's all quarterbacks, it speeds them up some. You're quicker to move out of the pocket, quicker to move up in the pocket, and you make decisions quicker than you should, because you're in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm gonna get hit quick if I don't get this thing out. And so to me, it's just, that's, again, you hope and fingers crossed for your Chiefs fan that DJ Humphries, can get back out there. It's something, it's not too serious, and he can get back out there and start meshing with that old line as you get into the playoffs. But they're gonna need something, because the hits Mahomes taken, I don't think, from just not even just a sack point, but just a hits point, it can't be sustainable, especially when you're going for a three-peat run where you've already played over the last couple years so much more extra football. But what I will say, man, the Chiefs, they don't, and Mahomes, he may not be the Mahomes we're all used to, but look, when they need it, he gets it done. And, you had the big play to Worthy, where, he's scrambling out, jumps up, twists his body around, makes the throw, things like that, where it's just Mahomes this year, where even in games where he hasn't been great throughout the game, he's still in that fourth quarter when they need it. He has shown that he is still that guy. And and Andy Reid, I mean, look, they get out to the lead straight away, and I think, again, it's just, we've talked about it before. I think Andy Reid kind of just goes into this conservative, like, let's just get out the game. I think part of that is probably like, I don't want to show too much. The other part of it, I think, is with that left tackle situation, you got to save Mahomes as much as you can, and if we can get up 12-0 and just kind of chip away, run away our way to a 19-17 win, that's what he's going to do. And so again, it kind of helps protect Mahomes some, and just kind of don't give away anything before the playoffs. And so, but yeah, again, so Chiefs, obviously at this point it's just I equated it to kind of like the LeBron teams in Cleveland, where it's just, yep, just get through the regular season, get to the playoffs. And we saw the Chiefs do it last year, kind of fumble their way through the regular season, but they get to the playoffs and they flip that switch, and they flip the switch in during the regular season this year during the fourth quarters when they've needed to. So, but great game, man. And yeah, we'll see if they can, again, keep that kind of cushion there. And speaking of that cushion, man, look, Bills Rams, talk about a shootout. And so 42-44, Bills fall to the Rams. And big loss for the Bills. We've talked about it. I mean, even from a standpoint of, let's say, if they didn't lose this game but the Chiefs win out, it keeps that pressure on the Chiefs where maybe they can't rest on that Christmas Day game. And so it's just, that was a big one from one, just keeping pace in the conference where you might be able to sneak away with the one seed in the bye, but also just the fact of, make sure the Chiefs have to play as much football as possible. Don't let them get that week of rest because they have a game to play with. And so now, with that loss, pretty unlikely. I mean, obviously still can happen, but unlikely that they get that bye going into the playoffs. And look, they still got the Steelers right behind them, so they can't really afford to sit back. I mean, obviously, we'll see what the Steelers do over these next couple of weeks. But it's just, again, it was just that's from a playoff and standings standpoint, that's a tough one for the Bills to lose, with just a lot of fallout from what they can do moving forward. And look, man, the Rams, we're going to talk about them some more because obviously they had that the Thursday night game this week. But the Rams, man, look, they're a team where they're going on a little bit of a run here. We see what they can do against a team where if they need to put up the points, they can. And with Puka, Cooper Kupp, that's opened up their running back. What's his name? Anyway, but their running back, since they've gotten healthy and Puka and Cooper Kupp are both playing, Kyron Williams has gone from averaging 75 a game to over 100 yards a game. And so just having those two guys with Matt Stafford, it just opens up so much for them offensively, from the running game to just having, I mean, we've seen it with what Puka can do if you just get the ball in his hands, or if you just get the ball in the area around him. He's had two just absolutely ridiculous, incredible catches over the last 2 weeks. And so, yeah, man, Rams, scary team. And, we'll see kind of, as we talk about the other game, where we go from a 44-point game to, a game where combined they don't score 20. But again, man, that Rams offense can do a lot. And the Rams defense, man, it's young. It's not incredible, but it's not bad. And with a young defense, it kind of reminds me a few years ago to the Chiefs, where they had this young defense where it's like not a lot of guys, but as the year kind of went on and they get in the playoffs, they just keep getting better and better. And so by playoff time, we'll see where that Rams defense looks and how it's been. But I mean, obviously with this first game, they got 42 hung up on them, but it's Josh Allen. Thankfully for the Rams, you don't have to face a Josh Allen in the NFC. And, all due respect to, Jalen, who similar, but is not Josh Allen. Josh Allen is on a different tier. And so, but when we talk about, look, speaking of Josh Allen, talk about the Bills, the other side of this game, man. Look, this is a game where, and I've talked about it before, where the Bills and that coach, man, Sean McDermott, that's a game that you can really, I mean, not that it would have been like a guaranteed or they'd have a good percentage winner, right? But just the bad coaching at the end of that game from the Bills sideline, starting with, and Tom Brady on the broadcast talked about it before it even happened, of you can't run that ball on the goal line. And even if you do, it's got to be something where it's anything but burn a timeout, whether it's get back on the line and do it again, whether it's get up on the line, snap the ball. But again, to me, that is one of the biggest coaching gaffes, and it's in a big time spot that you can have there. Because the only thing you can't do is burn a timeout to give you 2 timeouts. Because then basically what it is you're saying, oh, there's 2 things you're saying. Either we're thinking this is an onside kick game right away, which with a minute left and 3 timeouts, you shouldn't. Or you're saying, I don't trust my defense, which, hey, 44 points hung up on you. I get it. But also, I mean, the Rams probably playing a little bit more conservative because they don't want to give the ball up. And so, again, to me, it's just, no matter how bad my defense has been that day, I think onside kick chances are at a 6% this year. I think your defense has a better than 6% chance of stopping them 3 straight plays and getting you the ball back. So doing that, burning that timeout, takes that completely out of the equation. Now you are in an onside kick game because it's the only way you can win this game. And so the QB sneak, huge mistake. That's one you either, like I said, if you're going to do the QB sneak, it's got to be you're right back up on the ball to do it again or clock it. Or more likely what I'm doing, especially if I have Josh Allen, pass the ball. Put it in his hands. If he finds an opening and can run it in there, perfect. But I'm not running a straight QB sneak with the chance it gets stopped, no matter how successful. Because I feel like every touchdown they had before that was a QB sneak. But you just can't take that risk there. And so whether it's rolling him out, letting him either find somebody, run it in, toss it out of bounds, and doing that 3 straight plays. But at that point, the burning of the timeout is the worst thing you can do in that point. You're better off kicking a field goal. You're better off kicking a field goal on first down than running that QB sneak and burning the timeout. So that's one big F. And then at the end, if you go and watch that end game where, Rams, 7 seconds left, about to punt the ball, and really, if you're the Bills, they're going to punt it as high as it can and try to kill that 7 seconds so you never really even get a shot and it's going to go out of bounds. So your Bills, the only shot you have at this is blocking it, right? And you have 9 players on the field. Your only chance at a win now is to block a punt. And you run out 9 players. Not missing one. You're missing 2 players on a need-to-have-it punt block in a need-to-have-it game. Inexcusable. So both those with the Bills, completely inexcusable. To me, it's a coaching mistakes that you can't have happen. And Sean McDermott, we've seen in crucial moments, does not make great coaching decisions. And so moving forward, obviously them in the playoffs, that's going to be something they got to keep an eye on. And look, it's why I said prior coming into this year, he was a guy who I would have, if I was the Bills, possibly looked at getting rid of to bring in maybe a Belichick or another coach, because I think while Sean McDermott did a great job at setting a culture and getting them there, we've seen it with other teams, man. You set the culture and then you bring in the guy who can get you over the hump. I don't think Sean McDermott is the guy that can get them over the hump. And I think he's shown that. And so, obviously now Bills kind of basically in that 2 or 3 spot, just kind of depends on how they finish out this year. But I think that with that loss, and then you got the Lions coming up, that's a tough loss to take, especially in the way you took it, as far as with huge coaching mistakes down the stretch there. But man, moving next, we're going Vikings, Falcons. So this one, man, look, Kirk going back to Minnesota. And look, Vikings put it on them. Sam Darnold went out there and carved up that terrible Falcons defense. 5 touchdowns on them. And look, it's for the Vikings, man, that's huge. It's absolutely huge because, again, man, you're keeping kind of pace with the Lions, and the Lions, who are now dealing with just kind of mounting cluster injuries. That's a team where it's like, they all you need them to do is drop one. And really, I mean, you got a game against them at the end of the season that's going to be possibly for the division. So right now, it's just, for the Vikings, it's, can we keep pace with the Lions in case they slip up, or can we keep pace with them so we have, a division game at the end of the year against them where we can possibly sneak into that 1 seed. And so, look, Sam Darnold, I know it's, he's had some ups and downs this year, but look, it's been a lot more ups. He's shown that he can, he's shown that talent that we all saw when he was coming out of USC. And look, it's going to be tough. I mean, barring just a meltdown from Sam Darnold in, the end of the season or in the playoffs, he's playing himself into a pretty big contract. And if you're the Vikings, what do you do with that? You got JJ there, but Sam Darnold with Kevin O'Connell. And look, I'm going to equate this to kind of a Brock Purdy thing, because I think a JJ McCarthy is going to be more so kind of what we would see from and I'm not saying he's better or worse than Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo, but we saw with Kyle Shanahan when he had Jimmy Garoppolo how they went out and went to go get a guy like Trey Lance, more athletic, more talent, higher upside. And so for me, if I'm the Vikings, if I'm Kevin O'Connell, do I want to, lower my ceiling at quarterback, but maybe increase my floor because JJ's not going to make some of the mistakes that Sam is going to make? Or do I want to have that guy who can go win me a game? And Sam Darnold has that talent paired up with Kevin O'Connell that I think he can go out and win a game. Another similar situation, McVay, when he had Goff. We saw them go out where Goff is like, he's good, more so of a game manager. They go get Stafford because a guy with more arm talent can go out and win a game. And that's going to be kind of the balance that they're going to have to figure out in Minnesota is, do we want to pay Sam, have JJ there, and, maybe JJ then becomes a trade piece or something. But to me, I think we've seen kind of the evidence of these big-time offensive coaches. Well, yes, they can make the Jared Goffs, the Brock Purdys, the JJ McCarthys, the Jimmy Garoppolos, they can give them great seasons where people will be like, wow, like, no, they're a good quarterback. But we also see all those guys, those head coaches who have those great quarterbacks look to upgrade to more of that Sam Darnold type who can go out and win a game. And so to me, like I said, barring this just colossal meltdown, to me, I think if you're the Vikings, you gotta pay him. You gotta pay him. And like I said, I would then use JJ as a trade piece or just have him as a backup. But I think that Kevin O'Connell paired with a guy with Sam Darnold's talent, you have to go with that. And so now, how much he's going to get? I mean, I can't see him getting he's definitely not going to get a 50-55 million, but could I see him getting maybe a $40-45 million contract a year over 4? Yeah. And so the Vikings, do you want to kind of reset the QB contract and roll with JJ with the lower upside, or do you want to go in on Sam Darnold with the possibility of getting burnt? But again, I think with just a Kevin O'Connell coach, I don't think I think the chances of you getting burnt on a contract like that are pretty slim. So, but the other side, man, look, Kirk Cousins, obviously with the return to Minnesota, not great, throws 2 more interceptions. And look, now they're second place in the division. And now this is where, again, you come to this kind of crossroad. We talked about it last week. Is it time for Penix to come in? And, it's tough because you still have a shot at the division. And if say you are able to kind of scrounge together, the Bucks falter some and you win the division, how do you feel about Penix in the playoffs compared to Kirk? But I just think Kirk, it's to me what it's looked like from Kirk is that, and look, it's no shot against him. He's an older quarterback who's coming off an Achilles injury, and so to me, it's just I don't think there's that full recovery from the Achilles, and maybe it will never get there. Maybe coming into next year, it looks a little bit better. Got the game time on it, got a full year on it, but just him fading down the stretch, and then the offense not really able to get into too much of a groove. To me, I don't think even if they were to squeak in the playoffs, I don't think they're a legitimate contender. I think there'd probably be a one and done. So for me, if I'm Atlanta, it's Penix time. And again, I get that that's probably punting on possibly the division, which again, I don't think they're winning anyways, but I think it might be a punt on the division. But if he's my future, if the point of him coming in now is so he's able to get that time reps with these offensive weapons. So when you come into next year should be, okay, let's see if we can go win the division now. You got the offensive weapons. You get Penix some time. If you guys squeak in the playoffs, even better because now you get Penix in there and he gets some playoff experience. Kirk Cousins, to me, doesn't seem like a guy who's going to make it's not going to be an issue of having him in the locker room with the young quarterback. I think he strikes me as the guy who's going to be helpful with it. Obviously, will he want to play? Yes. Would he possibly ask to be let go, traded next year in this offseason? Yes. But I don't think you have to worry about him making it uncomfortable in the locker room or anything like that. So to me, it's got to be time to kind of take that step, move into Penix, and just see what he can do. And look, we've seen it before where if he comes in and he is awful, doesn't look ready, you can always go back to Kirk. Kirk's going to be a professional. And, for Penix, we saw Bryce Young get sat and come back in, and look at what he's doing now. And so I think it may have been in reference to Penix last time, but if you have a quarterback, a young quarterback, and he can't handle the kind of being able to be sat and then put back in, if he's not able to handle that, he's probably not going to be able to handle being a starter in the NFL that you can build around. So I don't think there's any real downside to putting him in right now. And so if I'm Atlanta, that's what I'm doing, letting him get some time, letting him get some experience, and looking at next year. And so, man, lastly, Thursday night game, Rams-Niners. And so, look, we go again, Rams, who we had a fireworks show on Sunday. We had the exact opposite of it on Thursday Night Football. So Rams beat the Niners 12-6, basically ends the season for the Niners as far as playoffs go, keeps the Rams set pace with the Seahawks. And so, they're sitting in a good place to either win the division or be in that wild card spot. And so for me, when I'm looking at it, again, man, to me, the Rams are what I was saying the Ravens were last year or earlier in the year. To me, if I'm in the playoffs, if I'm in the playoffs, I don't want to play the Rams. If the Rams end up making the playoffs, that means they have been on a tear for the last 6-7 weeks. If they're healthy, having Puka and Cooper, that's, again, tough task for the defense. Matt Stafford has shown that, obviously won a Super Bowl. So a guy who can go out and win games. And Kyron Williams, again, running the ball great, and you got McVay on it. So um, to me, the Rams, if they, especially with home field, if they end up getting in the playoffs, getting home field, that's a team where, I mean, they can beat anybody. Like I said, we just saw them hang up 44 on the Bills, who looked like they could possibly be the second best team in the NFL up until that game, and still might be a top 2-3 team in the NFL after a loss. And so, to me, if I'm in the NFC, the team I do not want to play is the Rams. I mean, obviously the Lions, Philadelphia, we're going to talk about them in a second, but the Rams, man, I put them, if they end up getting into the playoffs, if they win the division, I would give them almost just as good of a chance to make the Super Bowl as the Lions or the Eagles, just because it means they're clicking. It means that offense is clicking, and the weapons they have. Again, that's a team that can go into any building or into any week and have the best quarterback, the best weapons, and win the game. So, I think Rams, again, if they get in, that's a legitimate contender at this point for me. And on the other side, man, look, the Niners, obviously wildly disappointing season, wildly disappointing end of the season. And look, Brock Purdy, man, we talked about it last week, and we've talked about it all year as far as him playing himself into a contract this offseason or out of it. And I think this season, and especially this game, I think he played himself out of a contract. If I'm the Niners, he's going to have to play out his contract next year. And if he's great, perfect. Then we can sign you, we can franchise him, whatever. But he has not shown me enough without Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Debo being at an all-pro level, George Kittle and Trent Williams. If he hasn't shown me enough that without those guys, which he's not going to have those guys if he's making $60 million a year. Without those guys, he hasn't shown me that on a consistent basis he can be a guy that can be worth a $60 million contract and bring you to the playoffs and carry you there. So to me, I think he played himself out of the contract. With that, obviously, also weirdly now I got to also look at the fact that Bills against the Bills in the snow, he played terribly. In the rain against the Rams, he played terribly. So now the elements now become a factor in, okay, well, if we have to go anywhere in the playoffs where it's going to be cold and the weather might play a factor, can I trust my quarterback? I can't have that question if I'm paying a guy $55, $60 million a year, which is what Brock Purdy was looking at getting. You know, obviously there's no reports on that, but for if his contract was up last year, he's probably looking at that $55 million. Now that Dak's got the $60 million, it's probably looking 55 to 60, I would guess. And so I just think with that, Brock Purdy, like I said, probably played himself out of the contract this season. I would be shocked if the Niners decided to move forward and give him an extension this offseason. Especially something that big. I mean, I guess if, he comes to you and says, look, I just want the security, I'll take $30 million a year, which, again, I could never see happening. If it does, fire your agent. But, again, barring something like that, to me, you can't pay him. You can't pay him. You work with next year. You got a franchise tag. And then if you have to break the bank, break the bank. If he's worth that. I don't think he will be. But at least it buys you more time to just see what you have with him. And so, look, that's going to wrap us up for the recaps. Like I said, I'm trying to really move through this. But look ahead games for the week. So we got 3 of them, big-time games. First one, divisional, and we're going to go with Bears-Vikings, man. So to me, this one's just a big game because, one, obviously the Vikings need to keep pace with the Lions. Like it's for the Vikings right now, everything must win. Like you just got to win. And so the biggest one with this though is, look, we saw this team division game. We saw these teams play a few weeks ago And it was one of the games that ultimately led to Eberflus being fired. But that was a game that the Bears could have won. And so, look, overtime game, Caleb played well, put up some big numbers against Flores defense. And so we've seen that this is a losable game for the Vikings. And Vikings or the Bears defense is solid. So obviously we'll see what Kevin O'Connell, Sam Darnold, those weapons can do. But to me, this game is just, again, it's obviously hugely important for the Vikings. For the Bears, it's the Bears is what it is the rest of this year. Win, lose, your focus is, does Caleb look good? Can we keep Caleb trending in the right direction? But for the Vikings, man, this is a game where, look, you shouldn't overlook this team because you did almost lose to them. But there's that kind of human instinct. And look, we heard the Vikings, a couple of their guys after last game talking about, oh, you need to, we're sick of hearing all this stuff about the Lions. You guys need to start paying attention to us. And look, that can go two ways. All I know is there's been teams where that's come out, and it's bulletin board material for the team you're playing against the next week. So, again, for me, this is a game Vikings just in order to, I think, keep pace and be able to get that home field advantage and just keep the possibility of that, you have to win this game. But, and then again, it's just keeping pressure on the Lions, who also have a big game this week. And so we're going to talk about that one next with Bills Lions. And so, first off, just from a standpoint, you got two teams who obviously need to win, right? And so both teams needing a win, probably more important. Who needs to win more? I would say the Lions. I think the Bills are kind of in a pretty comfortable spot with really their the only place they can go is as far as down to the 3. They lose and the Steelers go on a tear, their Bills will likely be a 3 seed. So not a huge kind of, not too much can happen for the Bills. Again, the thing with the Bills now is just kind of seeing if you can keep pressure on the Chiefs. And so from the Bills standpoint, I mean, it's a big game. Obviously, you'd like home field advantage against, in that second round playoff game. But 2-3, not a huge thing. For the Lions, man, this is just like you have to win. Because again, Vikings right on you. And the Lions don't have the luxury of a Bills where it's like, oh, we lose, we'll fall to, one spot. Like the Vikings, if you end up losing and the Lions, if the end up losing and the Vikings pass you, you're from a 1 to a 5. And that means you're on the playoffs or you're on the road in the whole playoffs. And so again, like that's the floor and how far you can fall from a Lions point of view is so massive that, again, this is almost, I would say, Bills, it's a would like to win. Lions, you have to win. And you have to keep winning unless the Vikings stumble. But to me, I mean, and again, we've talked about it. Lions, ton of injuries. And you're playing, the Bills who they've looked good all year. They've got weapons now. Josh Allen has stopped turning the ball over, which is so big for them. And you're still getting all the upside of him making these great plays, great throws, Superman runs. You're getting all the upside of Josh Allen without any of the downside you've gotten over the last few years. And so, again, for a Lions team who just keeps getting injuries, has had some questions as far as on the defensive side for the year, and you're in a must-win situation, it's a tough one, man. And so, I think the Bills, I think the Bills probably win this game. But one thing I'll give the Lions, man, they have found a way to win every game this year. And I've doubted them in a few of them, thinking like this might be the game they lose, but they find ways to win. And so with the Lions, just the culture they have set, it's just it feels like the epitome of like next man up, right? Like they all are just ready to go in, play hard. And look, shout out to Dan Campbell for like bringing in that culture. And so again, I think from the Lions point of view, you got to win it. From the Bills point of view, it's a nice to win. And I think the Bills do probably end up edging them out. And I think if they do, as much as I would hate to say it, I think the Bills, the way they win is very easy. Josh Allen has a big game. And I think if Josh Allen has a big game, does this lock up the MVP for him? And I think it does. The only way it doesn't is, again, if Saquon wins the rushing record, breaks the rushing record, and it's just, for me, and we'll talk about Saquon in a little bit, but if Josh Allen, like, if they lose, I think it almost disqualifies him from the MVP because of the team record, what they'll look like. And the Josh Allen's kind of stake in the MVP is, look at my team's success, and it's all based on me. But now if that team success starts to fall in line with a lot of other teams, you're going to get voters who are going to say, well, Lamar's got one more loss than you and has way better numbers. Or you're going to have people who look at, the Chiefs and Mahomes and say, well, they've lost one game. And like Mahomes' numbers, while like they're not great, that was going to be Josh Allen's whole argument is my numbers aren't great, but look what I'm doing with the offensive talent around me. And look, Mahomes, I mean, every upgrade they got at receiver from last year, I'm obviously leaving out Hopkins, has been out. And actually less because Rashee Rice was also out. And when we looked at last year, it was, Mahomes doesn't have weapons. So again, we're back to Mahomes doesn't have weapons, had Pacheco out. They get Hopkins, but you lose Rashee Rice. And so, again, it's like that could be a legitimate argument for Mahomes at a one-loss team. And then you got, again, Saquon, who if he breaks the rushing record, I think no matter what Josh does, at that point it's, he broke the rushing record, he's going to get the MVP. But if he doesn't, now he's going to kind of fall in that same thing of, I would assume if he doesn't beat the rushing record, he's probably not going to be MVP. But so I think from the Bills' point of view, the real reason the Bills need to win, it's more so for the Josh Allen MVP case as opposed to, like I said, seeding or anything like that. And look, we just talked about two of these, but Eagles and Steelers. So look, Eagles-Steelers game, obviously Steelers are going to be missing George Pickens. So he was ruled out. And with Pickens ruled out, to me, I don't see a way the Steelers can win the game. And from a Bills standpoint, that's great because if the Steelers lose, you kind of have the flexibility of if you lose, you still stay in that 2 spot. But to me, I mean, the Steelers are just so reliant on big plays on the outside, mostly which have been to Pickens, that with him missing, I think it basically cripples their offense because now you're asking basically Mike Williams to take over that role, which I mean, no offense to Mike Williams, he's not George Pickens as far as from a talent level. And so I think that brings, from the Eagles' perspective, your defense is very simple. Load the box. Like, that's all I'm doing because I'm not scared of really anybody else on the outside that the Steelers have. Mike Williams might be the only guy, you could maybe send help that way, but I don't even think you need to do that. And so, to me, I don't think the Steelers can come in. Now, granted, Russ has had success against the Eagles. He's had success against Vic Fangio in his career. But I think just with how the Steelers are set up to win low-scoring games where they make 1 or 2 explosive plays to George Pickens on the outside that either result in touchdown or huge chunk plays. And when you take out that one big element, now they're a team that wants to keep the score down and can't score. And so I would say this still stays a low-scoring game just because, the Eagles also don't want to throw the ball a ton. And the only thing I'm thinking here is the Eagles, obviously, where they've had success is in that run game, limiting Jalen's throws, letting Saquon eat. But look, Steelers got the number one run defense. And so I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to put up some crazy amount of points, crazy amount of numbers. I just think that their defense is going to hold the Steelers to such a little number that you won't need to do too much on offense. And so we're going to stick with the Eagles as we move into the headlines because it kind of goes right in line with Eagles defense or Eagles offense and kind of how they've been running it this year. Look, locker room contention with the Eagles. And it's to me, man, as an Eagles fan, it's always something with this team, right? It's either Sirianni is, beefing with Jalen and doing wild stuff. Or now we got AJ Brown, where after the game, so what can the Eagles do well, or what can the Eagles do to improve as a team? Is pass the ball, and so clearly, I mean, like, there's no other real way to interpret that. Like, it's what he's saying is, hey, we need to throw the ball more. That's a shot at the OC. That's a shot at Jalen. And I almost would have said it's more of a shot at the OC initially. But then you have Brandon Graham come out and he says, yeah, Jalen and AJ, they used to be friends, but now they're not. And it's like, so, okay, so now I'm thinking like this is clearly a Jalen AJ Brown issue. And then you have Jalen respond to it, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure people would want me to throw the ball more, but I'm here, I'm here to win, and whether that's me throwing the ball or us running it, he's like, I don't care what anyone else wants me to do. Like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, as long as we're winning games. And so, look, man, to me, it's just from AJ. One is selfish. This might also kind of point to, maybe this is something that has been happening a while now. Might be what led to, kind of the ending last year is, Jalen and AJ had some beef, which is why they're not friends now. But again, it's just, to me, you're rolling. You have a possible MVP in Saquon, who is, again, like, from AJ's perspective, if you pass in the ball more, it's less touches that Saquon gets. And it's been shown throughout the course of the year, the best way for us to win is Saquon getting more touches. So to me, it's selfish from AJ. To me, that sounds like hey, I'm trying to get my numbers, and I hope we still win, but I need my numbers. And to be having this kind of conversation and just vibe around the locker room during the late stretch of the season, like, to me, is just, as you should be getting ready for playoffs. Like, it just can't happen. Like, that is so bad. And so, yeah, again, it's just, we'll have to see what happens, but I think they win this week. I don't think, if I'm the Steelers, man, I'm putting a double on AJ the whole game. I don't think they will. I think load the box is the way they win. But if, I'm not letting him get loose, because look, that, who knows what that leads to on the sidelines, whatever. So again, I think it's just and that's going to be moving forward. I think every team now, if I'm any defensive coordinator, AJ is getting a double, because I want him upset, and he's shown he'll get upset. And then, man, last headline. I'm actually going to skip the Bill Belichick to UNC, because I want to spend some good time on that. But we'll touch on that probably next week's episode. But look, NBA Cup tonight. I'm actually going to be at the Rockets Thunder game. So we got Hawks, Bucks, Rockets, Thunder. I think with this, I think for the East, I think the Bucks, man. I think to me, it's almost like they need it. like the Bucks need it just to kind of give them some momentum, give them like something to be excited about. And so I think the Bucks beat the Hawks, take care of them. Rockets Thunder, I think the Thunder win. And I actually kind of, again, I think it's kind of important for the Thunder, who have legitimate championship aspirations. I think them in this game kind of, going in, if they're able to win this game, win the NBA Cup, I think that's a real important thing for them, because it's almost, high leverage game, kind of championship environment, especially if you get to play the Bucks, who, for what they are now, Giannis, a handful of those guys have won a championship. So I think this is sneaky important for the Thunder, just from a fact of like, it gives you that high leverage basketball where, it's something that could maybe kind of help propel you to your ultimate goal of a championship. And then lastly, man, we're going to give you the underrated watch of the week, and we're going to finish with our top 5. And so for the underrated watch of the week, I'm going with the Seahawks and Packers. So look, two teams that, obviously can put up a lot of points, have a lot of weapons, two quarterbacks who will throw the ball. And look, two quarterbacks who sometimes will throw the ball to the other team and sometimes hit their team. But I think that game is going to be, I think we're going to see a lot of offense that game. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch between Jordan Love, showing off his arm talent and possibly throwing some punts, and Geno Smith, who, again, showing off his arm talent with those weapons, and also probably maybe possibly throwing a pick or two. And so I think that'll just be a really fun game to watch. If you want a game where like, I have no stake in it, like I could care less about either team. That's just, to me, that's if that's how you are and you don't have any stake in it, that's going to be a great watch. And lastly, man, we're going to finish with the top 5. So top 5 this week, little switch up from last week. Number 1, Chiefs. Keeping the Chiefs. I think they are, again, they find ways to win when it comes to critical moments and crucial times in games. They're excellent. Situationally, they're excellent. So, again, they stay number 1. Number 2, look, last week I had the Eagles. They fell. Number 2, now I got the Lions back up there. And I know weird, Lions or Eagles fall in a win. The locker room dissension to me, like the locker room issues that are coming out, it gives me less trust in them moving forward. So going Lions back at 2. 3, we got the Bills. And so, again, Josh Allen playing incredible. We'll see, obviously. Look, Lions 2, Bills 3. That's a matchup this week. Might see one of them fall out of the top 5 with a loss. We'll see. But, I mean, the Bills with that offense, the defense has been good. I don't think that 44 they gave up is kind of I don't think that's something we're going to see too often against maybe against great offenses, but typically I don't think you'll see that. So I think their defense is still solid. And then Josh Allen, that offense, I mean, they scored 42. So he did what he needed to do. So 3, Bills. 4, this is where we're going to get the Eagles. So drop them down to 4. Again, I think Saquon's great, but what worries me now is with AJ coming out with this, what does the play calling look like moving forward? Do we still get heavy Saquon, or is it, well, we got to start throwing the ball more for AJ? And so, as much as I'd love to be like, as much as I think teams should not cater to that, we've seen that they do. And so, Eagles at 4. And look, it's 4 by a hair at this point. Like, they could win this game against the Steelers and look bad, and they're falling. And but 5 is the Vikings. Again, I think the Vikings, Sam Darnold, a lot more good games than bad. Brian Flores on that defense is been good all year. Good defense, the weapons they have. And look, again, I think this week, because you've got four teams in the top five where, or well, at least, yeah, four really, because I mean, depending on what the Bills do, the Eagles do, the Lions do, and the Vikings do, I mean, huge playoff implications on it and huge movement in it. So this top five, I think, is going to look a lot different next week. We'll see, but that's the top five. And man, look, as always, I appreciate y'all. Um, and look, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, please like, subscribe, interact with us on social media, interact with us on the YouTube comments and the Spotify comments. Look, appreciate y'all as always for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.